Welcome to the Back to Me podcast, where we help multicultural incoming freshman women and men manage their entire college experience throughout post-graduation to successfully transition into entrepreneurship and corporate workspaces as new hires.
Back to me. Oh, I turned it around. I'm back to me. I finally figured it out. I'm back to me. So when you think you have nothing, back to me. I go back to me. Yeah, I'm back to me.
Hello, everyone. It's your host, Yoli Tamu. It's Black History Month, and students are initiating their empowerment. In this week's episode, we are joined by Jovana Tankou and Jazmine Chism, the student podcast hosts of the Empowerment Zone at UCLA. These students have come together to offer a holistic space for the voices of Black students and staff members on their campus. Find out the significant changes that have occurred as a result of them raising their voices and expressing their needs during the pandemic. As one of the hosts prepare to graduate, find out how she plans to take the unknown leap into her next chapter. Enjoy. Boy, oh boy, these ladies. We have a powerful conversation in front of us. I want you guys to introduce yourself. Whoever wants to go first, my UCLA students, go ahead.
For sure. I'll start us off. Hello, everyone. My name is Jovana Tankou. I am a third year at the University of California, Los Angeles, and I'm studying African-American Studies and Sociology. That's my whole thing. I guess I should probably talk about where I come from. I work for the Academic Support Program at UCLA, which is a Black student-led, student-run Black Retention organization. And a part of the project I work for, or I've created, the Empowerment Zone, which is a radio show / podcast that I co-host with Jazmine that we have right here today.
All right. Yes. Go ahead.
I'm Jazmine Chism. I'm a fourth year, almost, done. Studying at UCLA, human biology and society major, and African-American Studies minor. I also work for the Academic Support Program as the assistant project coordinator. So I work right under our project director. And like Jovana mentioned, I helped create the Empowerment Zone because we just wanted to outreach to more Black students, staff on campus, know that there was resources available to them for their benefit.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. So you'll be graduating soon, huh? That's got to feel good.
I mean, I feel excited and nervous. I'm feeling all the feelings, I guess, because I'm like, finally, it's over. I came on a rough start in 2020 when COVID was happening, Black Lives Matter was happening, and just life was in chaos. And I was expected to transition to another institution, which I wasn't familiar with because I'm a first-gen student. So I'm just like, this is a lot happening. I have to be a student online, be a college student, etc. But now that things are over, I'm just looking at how much I've gone through and accomplished. So I'm proud of myself. So I'm glad that I'm able to celebrate. But I'm also a little bit scared for the future because I'm like, okay, where am I going to go for grad school? What's life going to be like? I have to become an adult. So right. I'm feeling all the feelings.
Yeah, it's normal. It's time to adult. It's time for that new chapter, right? So you did the full 4 years at UCLA?
Yes.
Very cool. Very cool. And you guys are leaders of the Empowerment Zone. That's pretty powerful. So now, what is that about? Can one of you tell me about the Empowerment Zone?
Yeah. So like Jazz and I said, we co-host the Empowerment Zone. And basically, we have it as the voice for Black students at UCLA. We talk about all things like school related, all things academic, but we also talk about like our holistic experiences, how to build community, how to create connections, how to network, what organizations should we join. We talk about a lot of the internal conflicts at UCLA, the diaspora wars. We talk about social political issues that are impacting our community, things of that nature. So I feel like anyone could listen to a podcast and kind of like get an insight of what it means to be a Black student at a predominantly white institution or predominantly non-Black institution. But the best part is that we are able to have guests on there, both other students, alumni, and even faculty that kind of get to talk about their experience as well. So we get a lot of perspectives and we're really able to unify the Black community.
That's pretty cool. So the Empowerment Zone is the podcast and you invite Black staff and faculty on as well as students. That's pretty powerful. I love that. And we were talking before about you covering pretty much the Black diaspora on your campus. Like all the organizations come to listen to the Empowerment Zone, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Like we invite people from all across the Harambe Council, which is like our governing body for all Black student orgs on campus. So that can be anything from like the Nigerian Student Association or the East African Student Association. We also have the Caribbean Students Association and the Afro-Latinx Student Connection, I believe, like talk about the different experiences within the Black diaspora. And we have like different professional orgs come on too. There's like Melanin Medicine, the like Pre-Law Association, and others. Me and Jovana both do research. We've had researchers come, or Black researchers on campus, talk about their experiences as well as our own. So people within these different spaces have different lived experiences, and we like kind of cover it all on our podcast.
And whose idea was this podcast?
We started it last year because we needed a platform to reach out to more students through our retention campaign, which is our goal every year is to make sure that we have 100% Black student retention. And through that, we do like different outreach methods. Usually we'll do like part of our empowerment campaign is to see what students are doing to keep themselves empowered, like give out merchandise and things like that to just keep them in the loop of our resources. But we decided to create the podcast to reach students who typically wouldn't know all these resources that are available to them, and just to make sure that we're hitting our objectives for our job. So everyone and anyone can learn about what's going on campus. It just not necessarily just Black students, but it is catered to Black students, but people within other organizations listen to it. So that's like anyone who's like in an ethnic community who's also trying to increase their retention rates, just to see like how we're trying to outreach to students within our particular target demographic.
Yeah. I mean, that takes a lot of initiative to just say, hey, let's start a podcast. This is work, as we both know. This is effort. So for you both to do that, that's pretty powerful. Now, before we even got on, we had a conversation before, and Jovana had some powerful comments to make. I said, wow, we got to bring that to the podcast. We were talking specifically about Black students and, whether you felt there was a significant change in the last few years, since the pandemic and since the traumatic death that we all watched of George Floyd. So you asked the question, Jovana, how do you feel? Is there a significant change?
Well, I feel like there is a significant change, though to what degree or if it's enough, I can't say that's true. But I do know that like I came in 2021, right? So I came in after the death of George Floyd, and I came into the school that like was big on diversity and big on inclusion and putting pictures of Black students everywhere. Like we have this, we have that. The Black Resource Center opened up the first year I came to campus, and I was like, wow, this is an amazing event. This is an amazing experience. And I talked to the elders, and the elders at my school, the alumni at my school were like, yeah, we've been fighting for this for decades. We've actually been fighting for these resources for years. And it took like a massive event, the death of Black people, for the school to think to themselves, we don't want to be canceled next. Let's try to move some money around, So while I understand that like in the era I'm growing up with, people are becoming way more aware of things like intersectionality, of things such as like inclusion and equity and diversity, I do recognize that, it's a push and a pull, that like for every step forward, we might have another step back, especially for the intentions that they're having. And I'm very cognitive of that, especially as I move around in the university. I know that like sometimes there'll be moments where like I'm given opportunity or I'm going for these things that like have an emphasis on diversity, and their benefit from showing my face and showing my brilliant work is to be like, look guys, look what we're doing. Look the great work that we do. So honestly, I tax them for that. I'm like, okay, if you're going to try to use our face, our work, to promote yourself as this like diverse institution, you're going to have to give Black students a little bit more than that. You're going to have to actually like put your money where your mouth is, or else we'll be getting used. And I feel like the university has done enough of that.
Wow. Put your money where your mouth is. Now, didn't you say that the Black Resource Center was completed during that time?
Yeah. All the money, I believe what it was is that the Blackburn Resource Center as an idea was like pitched like many, many years ago, because at the time we only made up like 3% of the population at UCLA, which is a very, very large institution. And Black students just didn't have a space on campus to like convene and to study. And they'll be in spaces like with non-Black students and they'll feel isolated or they just wouldn't see each other. So there was like multiple like campaigns to get funding for it, to get the institution to build that space. And it was continuously knocked down. Other students will vote against it, things like that. And then around the time during the actual like protests that were going on in response to George Floyd's murder, the university decided to pass an act to fund not just the Black Retention Research Center, but many other Black or African Union programmings, almost as a response to be like, oh no, we do care about you, which is unfortunate, like I said, but it did end with, me coming in my freshman year. I had a space when students before me did not have that.
Wow. So you said intention, you emphasized intention. So what are some other examples that you feel where the intention was there? You have the resource center. Was there any other, I guess, more activities that were offered to you guys?
There's always student initiative programs and fight that gets us resources. Like I'll give an example, like outside of the Black resource space, I'm part of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. So I'm part of the D9 on campus, and the Deltas and the Kappas on campus just turned 100. And the students within these organizations, and I guess alumni, had to fight to get plaques on campus, which wasn't a thing that we've had ever. It wasn't initiated by the university. Or, for example, there was 2 Black Panthers that were killed at UCLA, murdered by the FBI on Campbell Hall. And they've been fighting for decades to rename Campbell Hall to like the Bunchy Carter and Higgins Hall, because that's where they were murdered. And that's where they were basically congregating and trying to like start the African Student Union or the BSU at the time, and creating all these resources for Black students. So all these initiatives come from the communities and demographics that are affected, not necessarily UCLA.
Now, Jazmine, earlier at the top, you were talking about as a senior, wow, you're ready to change and you're concerned about it a little bit. So now as you step forward into the world as an adult, do you feel prepared? If not, what you need, girl? What you need? Like, that's a big question.
I know. I guess. And no. Do I feel prepared? I feel like, yes. I feel prepared, at least with my experience with being at UCLA and being involved in so many different organizations that would help me propel into the future. Like, for example, like you mentioned, ASP, I do a lot of administrative work, and that like kind of bleeds into different organizations that I'm in. Because now like I'm a project consultant for another like research group focused on like environmental justice and sustainability in LA, and where I like help undergrads facilitate like a group project with a stakeholder. So that my admin work helps me to orchestrate that. And then being in research for all these years at UCLA has helped me gain an understanding of what I want to do, one, and then like the skills to do so when I'm in my graduate program. So I feel like being so involved has prepared me. I think I'm just afraid for that next step, since it's really just like, oh my goodness, you're now an independent student. Like I was just filling up my FAFSA and it was like, you are considered independent. I'm like, am I? Like, really? Like, am I ready to be independent? Yeah, it's official. So I don't know. I think what I'm more concerned isn't necessarily academics, but like making sure that I'm getting my finances in order, like investing in the right things, like making sure that, okay, where am I going to stay? Like, do I need to get approved for an apartment? Do I need to get approved for like a car, etc., so that, I can be mobile and actually be an independent person.
Yeah. So we had talked about that. You were saying about you were looking for some support, and you mentioned financial concerns being one of them. Now, on campus, you work with a career counselor to help you identify internships, or what does that look like moving forward for career goals?
Mostly it's been self-initiative, like, searches. We have this tool called Handshake provided by UCLA, and they'll, like, show you different opportunities during the summer that you can get involved in or just potentially throughout the year. So I've been looking at that as well because I know I have a little bit of time in between graduation and starting grad school in the fall. So I've been looking at that. But a lot of it is self-initiated. There isn't necessarily, like, a counselor that talks to you officially and it's like, "Okay, let's plan for the new year." Being an ASP has been really beneficial because we have like a senior checklist and like they make sure that students who are graduating understand like what you need going out. But outside of ASP, through the university, there isn't like a guided checklist to help students. You kind of have to seek it out for yourself.
Interesting. A guided checklist. So that would be helpful. So now you said you were looking at some graduate schools. Are you going to take a break? You think you want to work when you come out? What's your plan?
Oh, I've been applying to graduate school fall of last year because through the McNair Scholars Program, we're required to, and I just wanted to go straight through because I felt like I was ready for it. So I'll be starting graduate school in the fall. Where? Not too sure yet. Hopefully still in Southern California, but I'll have, I guess, a little bit of a break between graduation and grad school.
Okay. Well, it's good to hear these things because that's why we started this podcast. You know, we were dealing with transitions of students, you know, the freshmen coming in for that new experience for the first time and all the anxiety of just getting on campus. And then like yourself, heading out, going to the workforce. What does that look like? You know, how do I start preparing for a job and what does it look like to pay taxes? All these different things come into play. And like you said, I need a checklist. Where's the checklist? So it's like great to hear these things because when we do these workshops, this is like food, this is knowledge to put these things together. What about your network? Do you feel like you have a good network in the field that you're going into of people that have been maybe 2 steps ahead of you?
I would say that it's decent just because I've connected with a few graduate students already who are in the fields that I'm interested in. But the thing is, like, the fields that I'm interested in like are so small. I'm interested in environmental health and epidemiology. So it's like smaller sector of public health where I'm looking at like how pollutants and may be exposed to certain demographics and how, why, and doing research on that so that we could perform policy to help to mitigate those factors. But environmental health is like so small. So I have like maybe like 2 graduate students within the epidemiology field. I also have like a graduate mentor who's like been really helpful with my graduate program search through UCLA. And I've been connected with different professors at different schools about my interests. So yes, I have a network so far. It's just been, I don't know. I've just been trying to take one step at a time because like first you got to fill out the graduate application, then you got to do the interviews, and then you got to see where you're gonna go and like how to like plan out your life. So I've just been trying to like not be as anxiety driven about the future, but like take one step at a time and seek the help where I can when I'm at that point.
Absolutely. I think it definitely always starts with a good mentor, somebody that's in your field. And if I can find somebody, because we have so many people on this podcast, if I can find someone in your field, I will definitely send them your way. So it's good to know. All right. Now, Jovana, when we were talking, as we said, we talked about society and whether we've changed or not as a society as a result of the pandemic. You know, you said that you feel like there's some intention there on the campuses and things like that. But are there any other ways that you think students can move forward, just in general, Black students on college campuses? Do you believe that's the right place for people to be, or should they consider vocational programs because you don't feel you're getting what you need on a college campus? How do you feel about that?
Well, I think Black students need to be everywhere. I think people need to be everywhere. And things are only going to get better the more of us that are there. I think a big thing for me is we need to ensure that like Black students are in control of their own destiny because I think that's the only way that our needs are going to get met. At UCLA, like, or specifically ASP, we have this slogan, student initiated, student led. And it's really important because our programming that was created, for example, Eric White, he was a college student at the time that went to UCLA. He was a Black man. He unfortunately was failed by the university. So eventually it looked like he was going to drop out. He got dismissed. And basically, once you get dismissed, you have to go through this entire process to get readmitted into the university. And it was a process that had very little like guidance, very little counseling. Yes, they're counselors, but they only meet with you a few times. And they're like, you have to do all this by yourself. You have to go to community college, whatever. And during that time, he was able to readmit himself, and B, he created a guide for students who've gone through that process, who were failed by the university, who unfortunately left the university to readmit themselves so they can finish their 4-year degree. And to this day, we still use that. Like, that was a student who not only was like, wow, I can't believe this thing happened to me, but let me help other students do that. You get me? And I feel like that's like the power of student-initiated, student-led work. Like, so many of the resources at our university that are meant specifically for Black students are spread by Black students. We're on the front lines, you know? Obviously, the university is not going to just to give these things out for free. But even the administration, you know, people that they're paid jobs to ensure that like as many students feel reached out to, they don't have the capacity or they don't have the care. So if you're unable to do it, I think you should get more Black students, not only on your staff, but like listening to the administrative powers that be to kind of get like their perspective, you know? So that's my little 2 cents. We do have a Black USAC president. So, you know, we're making strides in that way. But I think like as long as the administration is speaking with us and not for us, there'll continuously be improvement, you know?
Now, when you said more programming, what type of programming are you talking about?
Things like support for STEM students, Black STEM students. For example, we just launched our peer learning facilitating program, which is basically like almost like a tutoring system because, you know, these STEM classes are difficult and they do weed out students. And a lot of students, especially if you come from LAUSD school, as I do, you don't have like the basic, like your classroom size, depending on the classroom that you were in, like you probably didn't get the same level of information as another student who went to a private school. So kind of things that like narrow that gap. You know, we always talk about the hidden curriculum. Coming in, I took a class on education, like I think critical issues in education as a freshman. And I learned so much about just the little things, little hacks, like where to go to see an APA, things in APA format, like how to cite your sources, what extensions to use, things that you might know if your parent was in academia or you have an older sibling in academia or you just like were in situations where that was like knowledge that was given to you. But as someone like me who's a first gen student whose parents are immigrants, like where am I going to know that if in a classroom setting? And a lot of the times these professors are not trying to teach you anything because they expect you to already know. So kind of like systems like that kind of bridge the gap, you know, that like meet Black students, especially those that come from disenfranchised backgrounds where they're at and don't make them feel like they're less than for not having that same opportunity in the past.
Wow. Well, like I said, I'm just really excited to talk to you guys because everything you're saying is why we created this podcast. I mean, we need to really take some time and go through some of our guests, I think, with you guys, because STEM, for example, you know, we have some powerful people that are offering free workshops in STEM. So it's just about being exposed because those resources are there. And a lot of them are here on the podcast. So I'm just glad to hear you guys vocalize it because it needs to be said out loud. And so I thank you for having the courage to just call it what it is. We need support, okay, in all aspects. Love it. All right. Now, we always wrap up with final words of encouragement. And so I was just thinking as you were talking, Jovana, or actually, let's go to Jazmine. You're getting ready to take a big leap. You're trying to figure it out for yourself. But do you have any advice for some other listening graduates about how you're maintaining and keeping yourself and your anxiety low as you take the next leap?
You know, I would say it's been a long ride, especially starting in the beginning of this year, because I stressed myself out to the point where I ended up getting really bad cold sores and I was stress induced. So I will say, even though it's hard to practice what I preach, take one step at a time and go at your own pace. Because I feel like if you're constantly trying to micromanage your future, like you're just going to stress yourself out and not be in the present, because you also need to enjoy your last year. This is a time to celebrate as well as much as it is a time to plan for the future. So be in the present, take one step at a time, and just relax. Things will work out in the end.
This too shall pass, right? I love it. Okay, Jovana, any words of encouragement for these transitioning students into this new environment?
Sure. Don't be afraid to speak up for yourself and put things in writing. I always tell my counselees, if you got a complaint and someone's messing with you, make sure that you verbalize that complaint and put it in writing and don't let off these people's necks. I'm telling you, like, I've always been a pretty proud person. I've always been a very outspoken person. And I feel like just kind of tailoring that to like my own success, has really helped me. My dad has always said, make the difference, and basically what he meant by that is like, if 100 people are getting only like $10, you be the 101st person who gets $20. Like, you make the difference between you and other people because you're deserving of the world. So kind of like internalize that. Don't let anyone take that away from you, and don't be afraid to advocate for yourself.
I love it. And when you say put things in writing, you're talking about send emails, get off the phone. Is that what you mean?
Oh, yeah. Get your email game to 100.
Okay.
And I promise you,
Yes.
No one's going to be talking to you crazy.
That's right. Refer to this last email, please. I love it. I love it.
Right. As you said earlier today.
Yes. It's very important. Very important. Well, now, how can we learn more about the Empowerment Zone and listen to some of the powerful guests that you guys have? Where would you like to send everyone? To a website or IG?
Yeah, for sure. We have the Empowerment Zone on Spotify and Apple Music. Just look up the Empowerment Zone by ASP, I believe. And if you want to follow us on Instagram to check out what we're doing, check out if we have anything coming up, we have our Instagram, ASP at UCLA. And that's the actual Instagram. So ASPAT UCLA.
All right.
So yeah. Feel free to reach out. We love having guests on our episodes. So if you guys want to contact us, you can always reach out there too.
Love it. Love it. Hey, I might send some guests your way. Shoot, the STEM guests we're talking about. Send you guys some guests. This has been great. Well, I appreciate you ladies. Congratulations, Jazmine, on your upcoming graduation. You're going to be fine. Life is going to be fine. So you guys have an incredible week. I appreciate you. Let's stay in touch. How about that? Sounds good?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. All right. Great. Thank you, Jovana. You guys take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us. As you strive to take control of your destiny in college, be sure to hold your school accountable and get the support you need. For more information about other episodes, remember to subscribe to the Back to Me podcast, College and Beyond. I'm your host, Yoli Tamu. Leave a review at the end of this podcast, and if you would like to learn more about other special events, join the Back to Me podcast Facebook group, or simply text Back to Me to 833-206-4565. Until next time, be well.